Welcome back. Still here in Wausau, Florida, here right now in the middle of a rainstorm. It is summertime, and it's a 50% chance of rain, which means it's going to rain at some point pretty much every day this time of year. The Wausau Possum Festival is held on arguably the hottest day of the year. Anybody who attends will typically say that at least a couple times in the course of the day.
That's true.
This has got to be the hottest day of the year. From the time that you get into the parade to the time you're at the Possum Palace, it is just pure hot.
Right.
We're talking about the sequence of the day. We've talked about the pancake breakfast and the 5K run. Next comes the very large parade.
Right.
And that is, to me, one of the highlights of the festival. You see everybody that all the kids enjoy it, all the candy that's thrown and the novelties and so forth. You've probably seen lots of changes in that parade over the years, but nonetheless, a parade is a parade. It's a bunch of folks marching or walking down a street. You mentioned that at one time you had kids on bicycles. One thing I did want to talk about was that Shriner component of the parade. There's no one in the world probably that doesn't identify the little cars that the Shriners drive, the motorcycles, the floats like the pirate ship, and they're blowing water onto people and blowing off their cannons when they go down the road. The Shriners truly, as you point out, do make a parade, and that's got to be a very nice part of that Wausau parade.
That's true, Paul. The Shriners do make if it wasn't for the Shriners, a lot of parades in the area, like the Watermelon Festival and so on and so forth, it would be, they would miss the Shriners, and we appreciate it. But we appreciate now, I get to see more and more covered wagons and then different and parade entries, that's unusual and so forth like that. They beginning to get in and see a different, besides the queens and the politicians, you see different floats and stuff getting in that, and a lot of churches and so forth, organizations particularly, are getting involved, and I'm proud of it.
Falling Waters State Park every year have what they call the Legends and Lore Festival, where they have the old-timey crafts. I'd say art, but at the time that they were done, they weren't for art's sake, they were for function's sake, whether it was soap making or candle dipping, corn grinding, and all of that stuff. I think along with the going back to the old features of the original festival, like the greasy pole and the sack races and so forth, that there would probably be some benefit to trying to attract some of those people who do those old-timey crafts to come to the festival too. Have you seen some of that over the years?
I've seen some, but I'd like to see more than that, Paul. I'd like to give an invitation for those that would do something like that, as far as I'm concerned. I would like to see more of the old crafts and stuff like woodwork, basket weaving and stuff like that, the folklore, come and be part of our festival. I'd like to see more of that.
And we have a good number of people right here within the county who do those things already.
They're welcome.
Who exhibit, who demonstrate those skills.
Yes, sir.
Charlotte Sapp does a lot of that basket weaving with the pine needles and so forth. Bill Maphis, real heavily involved in some of that stuff. So we've got some good folks in the county, and I'm glad you made that invitation. So maybe going forward in future years, we'll maybe try to involve some of those people a little bit more.
Yeah, this is one of the things that we really need is more of those folk-type participants.
And I'm glad to hear you say that. So now we're up to the point where we have had the Wausau Possum Parade.
Right.
Now everybody adjourns to the Possum Palace.
Right.
There you're going to see lots of food vendors. You're going to see lots of arts and crafts. You're going to have some of the kids' games going on, lots of entertainment on stage. It's just a whirlwind. If it's your first time there, you're hot, you're already sweaty from watching the parade. You come over there and you're surrounded by sights and sounds and smells. It's really just a kickback to your days as a child when you went to a carnival and you were just completely overwhelmed by everything. That is just a really huge part of the event.
Yeah, well, that's true, Paul. And when you get to the Possum Festival, the first thing you're going to do, you'll find a corn pone baking contest. Corn pone, that's when I started the festival. I said, we'll give something for everybody to do. The ladies could cornbread, cook a corn pone and come and win your trophy. They give them a chance to participate. And that'll be one of the first things they have is a corn pone baking contest. Then they'll have varied entertainment. They have bluegrass and country, and I'm sure they'll have some country, maybe country gospel and so forth and so on. And but then at the afternoon and night, I think they got a dance schedule this year. I'm not for sure.
They do. They've actually, that's one of the other old features that they're bringing back. 6 to 10, $5 to get in.
Right.
Can't beat that. They've got a really good local band that's going to be there. They're going to try that out and see if they can bring that back.
Right. Paul, getting back a while ago, you mentioned, about how has people appreciated not only me. Like I said, I don't want to think it personally. It's been because I think about those that's going on now. The old development club members, people that was not even in the club, how they participated. And I want to thank the Wausau city government. If you notice that sign down there, one day they got to thinking, they said, we're going to show how we appreciate him. And they dedicated the recreation center in my behalf. Now, I am proud of that, Paul. I got to see that done while I was living, not after I died. And I appreciate the town of Wausau, the government officials of Wausau that made that possible. And I have had some of the best cooperation that a person would ever have with city government as I worked with these festivals. I worked hand in hand with the city government. Getting back to working with them, let's just take for instance the Possum Palace. How did that come about? Well, one year it was arranged, just like it is now. Congressman Bob Sykes, the late Congressman Bob Sykes, he was in the parade and he come down, poor Paul, and Congressman Sykes got just as wet as a toad frog. He said, Dalton, he says, you people get together down here and we will have a place, we'll make a place to have the Possum Festival. I'm telling you the truth. There's a document in the City Hall. They gave me a wall down there, and it's a letter in there showing how this come about. You can see it. But Congressman Sykes said, you people get together down there and said, we'll fix a place to have the Possum Festival. So I got the city officials of Wausau, some of the people there, I handpicked them. I said, I want you to work with me. I got some local people that was raised in Wausau, some that was not even raised in Wausau, to get with me. Eli Harrell in Chipley, he was a contractor, he was a Wausau boy. Royce Pitts worked with the DOT, he was a designer, he was a Wausau boy. We got together and we would meet in Eli Harrell's construction office, planning, along with the city officials. It all had to go through the city of Wausau. And we planned market, in other words, something like the Possum Palace now, that building you see. We was going to have a produce. Farmers in the area could bring the produce and display it there. We had basketball courts. We had a shuffleboard thing. The more you draw it in and could use it and send your application to HUD, the better chance you got to get your grant. So we did that. We got our acts together and it went through the city of Wausau, and they sent their application down to, at that time, HUD had an office in Jacksonville. And Congressman Sykes was in direct communications with me. He said, Dalton, have you heard from HUD? I said, I hadn't heard from them. The next thing I know, they say, we are evaluating Mr. Carter's request in the city of Wausau. So look here, Paul, it took us about 3 years from the time that we submitted the application for that grant for the Possum Palace for it to ever come to be fruitful. And I tell you what, I'm sure on numerous occasions that HUD dropped that application in the basket, in the trash basket, but Congressman Sykes had them to get down and hunt that application and pull it back out. But look here, we kept on, Paul, and one night, Mr. J. Lee Walters was mayor of Wausau at that time. Congressman Sykes' office called me, and he says, Dalton, he also called the mayor of Wausau. He says, there was $76,000 approved grant for Wausau's Possum Palace today. It was approved, $76,000 for that building that you see. Well, let me tell them more about that. So what happened, the city of Wausau had $76,000 to build a Possum Palace. So what they did, they let a contract. And when the bids come in, it was over budgeted. And then what the city of Wausau did, they negotiated with the contractor. We had to reduce the size of that building and kept it at the same dollars per square foot for that bid to go through. And they accepted the bid, and that's how the Possum Palace became fruitful is because of Bob Sykes is the daddy of the Possum Palace. He was our congressman at that time.
The Possum Palace is one of the only venues in Washington County where you can hold an event, rain or shine. We have the Ag Center, and obviously there are challenges with the Ag Center. It gets real hot, it can get real loud because it is enclosed and it's block building. The Possum Palace, in the environment in which it's set, with the open sides, yet with a stage and an air-conditioned backstage with bathrooms, is a great opportunity for all kinds of events. We've been over there for car shows and dog shows, for music concerts, and I'd like to see that used even more going forward. The fee is extremely reasonable. The city of Wausau is extremely amenable to working with groups wanting to come in. Right. You've got RV hookups there with power and water.
Right.
You've got a ball field and a children's playground. You've got a great opportunity there outside the palace there for vendors to set up, which you do in the festivals. The dog show that's held in the fall and then again in the early spring every year amazes me. It brings people from literally all around the country: Texas, New England, New Jersey. This last year, there were more people from outside of the South than there were from the southern states. For that many people to travel to little old Wausau and stay in our motels or camp there at the campgrounds associated with the Possum Palace, truly phenomenal.
Right.
And to have a high-profile dog event of that stature come to Wausau, that's strong. So that having that Possum Palace is really important.
Yes, it is, Paul. And then getting back to the Possum Festival, back even when I was talking about Miss Smith a while ago, they had that little grocery store in Wausau. Mr. Arthur Rogers, now then it's the Tom Thumb. Ask them people after Possum Day. They proud it's over with because they give slam out down because the people are buying stuff. But it's good for the economy right there. Miss Smith said we sold more light bread. You know, you could sell more loaves of light bread as the people around. But we don't have any motels. People come far and near, and then they get motels in Chipley, Bonnick, and stuff like that. They buy gas, and a festival this way with all these people, it's just a benefit for the economy and the area, and I'm proud of it. That's what it's all about.